Is it taking way too long to convert your qualified leads into paying customers? How can you tell if you're losing sales because of your product price? In this episode, we're going to explore how discovering the market price for your product can help you overcome these challenges and a whole lot more. I'm Stephen White, and this is Building Lean. Hey there, awesome founders. Welcome back once again to Building Lean, our series of workshops that cover the steps and activities your startup must take to build key business functions to sustainably generate revenues. Not only are our workshops inspired by thought leaders on startup and scale methodologies, but we also share our experience as founders, as well as working with hundreds of startups and our research distilling the reasons why over 160 funded startups failed. And that's not all. We have Shafiq patiently waiting to join us immediately after this workshop to answer your burning startup questions related to how you can build your startup lean. If you're interested in growing your startup by building lean, please subscribe to this YouTube channel and click that notification bell nearby so you can receive the latest insights that will help you avoid mistakes that cost you time and money. Now, during our last episode, we explored the channel assumption as we discussed where you can find your prospective customers and the messaging you'll use to activate them so they become qualified customer leads. Without being able to develop a proven channel strategy, your startup will struggle to overcome the second fatal flaw as your sales take too long and cost too much to grow your business. And here's the thing, without a steady stream of qualified leads, you'll never have a chance to work out whether you have the right pricing for your solution, nor get into a virtuous product improvement cycle, which we'll talk about the next episode. But in this episode, I'm going to explore how your sales funnel design is based on taking your qualified leads through the buyer's journey and why your solution's pricing is a function of the value your product or service delivers. Developing an efficient sales funnel addressing each of your customers' questions from each stage of the buyer's journey and implementing a clear pricing structure will enable you to avoid or even overcome the third fatal flaw related to customers rejecting the price for your product as it doesn't actually deliver the value your customer expects in having their problem solved. So let's jump right in. If you're calculating the selling price you can charge your customer based on your costs, you're missing the value delivered in that equation. More importantly, asking a specific dollar amount for your product without expressing the value your product or service delivers will result in low customer conversion rates and hamper your sales growth. So as an example, hey, would you be interested in this awesome blue box for $39? Wait, no? It's not interesting enough? Okay. Hey, how about, would you be interested in this awesome red box valued at over $390, but you can have it for just $39? Or perhaps you'd be interested in this awesome purple box that saves you 5 hours at work per week for the low one-time price of $39. See, value pricing is based not on cost, but value delivered. So how do you calculate the value delivered? That's the key. And it's actually pretty simple. The value delivered is the amount of money your target customer spends using existing alternatives to solve their problem currently. Remember, we discussed this during the first key business assumption related to the problem assumption. In other words, if you're saving your customer time, well, that translates to money. Or say if you're improving the quality of their experience when they're solving their problem, that quality also translates into money. So from your customer's perspective, pricing is not based on your cost to produce your product or service. Instead, it's based on the value your solution delivers based on your customer's needs. Now, generally speaking, if you deliver, say, $500 of perceived value for your customer, you can charge $50 for your product and get massive adoption of your product. Say, though, you change your price in that example by increasing it to $100, but still only deliver $500 of value. Well, then your adoption rate is going to slow down due to the reduced price to perceived value ratio from your customer's point of view. Getting the price right relative to the perceived value being delivered helps you increase your product adoption rates and your profit margin. Now, I do want to be really clear about one thing. We are not recommending that you take a loss to maximize your solution's value relative to price. Instead, it's critical that you understand how your product or service solves your customer problem, the perceived cost of that problem for your customer, and the essential features or capabilities that you need in your solution. In other words, leaving fluff on the side that just distract from the value being delivered. So look, you cannot build the right size solution if you don't understand what your customer is willing to pay you to have their problem solved. In a similar regard, you need to understand anchor points that fix a solution price in your customer's mind. Breaking your customers free of existing anchor points is essential if you're innovating in an existing established product market category. This is all about you quickly getting your customers to say yes. So let's take a quick example, look at a quick example of what an anchor point and see it in action. So in this example, let's say you're the founder of a consumer packaged goods startup that has developed a new salty snack that tastes fantastic and is almost as healthy as it is delicious. In this case, your product's anchor point would be other salty snacks such as chips, pretzels, and popcorn. While consumers may find your product tasty and healthy, if you set the price target for your product at $2 per ounce, do you think you're going to be successful? Well, actually not likely. And that reason is that when you consider what competing snack options cost, and they cost approximately 30 cents per ounce. So to break free of this anchor price, your product would have to offer substantial value over existing alternatives, substantial value that your customers clearly recognize. Now, I'll cover what's involved in identifying and measuring value delivery during our next episode. So for now, let's look at another example. In this case, you're the founder of an education startup where you've created an online course for project management professionals. When you assess competitive offerings, you notice that each of them have been priced their courses between $150 and $500 per module. Would you be able to charge, say, $1,500 per module? Once again, not likely. The only way you would be able to is if your course helps your target customer learn the same material in 1/10 of the time, or you offer specialized knowledge that enables your customers to accomplish something that they otherwise couldn't do with other course options. This means that understanding what your customer is accustomed to paying for a similar solution will help you assess the upper limits of your product price. Remember, pricing is determined by the perception of your customer as well as the measurable value your product or service provides. So let's briefly consider one more example. But in this case, we're going to look at a real-world case study of a product category that we're all familiar with. Back in 2018, Oukitel released a copycat version of Apple's iPhone X. Their model U18 copied the physical design of the iPhone X so much so that they even included the famous notch at the top of their bezel-less screen. However, Oukitel claimed that the U18 had more memory and a bigger battery than the iPhone X. Pretty great, right? Well, the U18 didn't have Apple's A11 processor chip, nor did it run on iOS. Instead, it ran on Android, which also meant it didn't have access to Apple's App Store. So let's talk about pricing since that's our focus here. If Oukitel priced the U18 at $1,000, a full $100 less than the iPhone X's price at the time, would you have bought it? Why not? Now, if your answer is that you have no idea whether the U18 would work as well as an iPhone, then you're on the right track with your thinking because you're thinking like a consumer who's managing their own risk, just like your customers do. And on top of that, when you think about the risk, there already were Android phones available for far cheaper than $1,000 with similar hardware specs as the U18. Now, Oukitel understood this problem, which is why the U18 was priced at $129, which is almost 1/10 the price of the iPhone X when it was released. See, selling Me Too products without providing clear value does not result in customer conversions unless you already have an established brand, which I'm going to say is really, I want to really emphasize this, that is not something startups should invest in up front. You build a brand, you don't invest in it, you earn that brand. Now, one more thing about pricing. There are ways to break past anchor points that largely depend on the specific problem you're solving. Now, if you have a price issue that you need help with, apply today to join the Lean Master Incubator, and our experts can help you directly with this. So let's look at the tools you'll use to prove out your pricing assumption. Now, the first tool is the buyer's journey, which you should be familiar with from our previous episodes. When it comes to validating if your solution's price is appropriate for the value your product delivers, you have to build out your sales funnel first. This may seem like a complicated process where you would need a seasoned sales professional to help you out. In fact, this is the primary responsibility of you as a founder and chief product officer. At Lean Mastery, we develop tools around the buyer's journey to make it easier for you to do just that. The buyer's journey reflects the stages a buyer goes through when considering the purchase of a product or service. When you think about this as a consumer, this is actually a fairly logical process. So let's look at how you would use the buyer's journey to design your startup's sales funnel by examining our second tool, the sales funnel design template. To begin with, you'll notice that the stages of the sales funnel map neatly to the buyer's journey. Starting with the first stage of the buyer's journey, when you're converting prospects to qualified leads. The first stage of your sales funnel will confirm that those leads have the problem your solution intends to solve. Now, if this isn't true, then your products will naturally drop off because your product effectively isn't speaking to their needs. Now, from there, you use the leads generated from your channel to present those qualified leads with a description of your product. This description will cover what your solution is, the value it delivers to your customer when solving the problem, and how your solution is better than existing alternatives. As your prospective customer moves from being a warm lead into a hot lead, you address their inherent concerns with buying a new product for the first time by managing their risk that your solution won't satisfactorily address their problem. Think back to that U18 example with Oukitel, managing the risk. Finally, during the last stage, to get your hot lead to convert into a paying customer, you address their decision whether your solution is the right one for them. This is all for a purpose, as your sales funnel is designed to make it easy for your customer to understand the problem you're solving in detail, understand the alternative ways they can solve their problem, and why your solution is better than all other solutions in the marketplace. Oh, and how you'll manage their risk of trying your product or service. Only when you've gotten them past all these points, you can test pricing. In other words, without successfully getting your qualified leads past these stages, you'll get false negatives that your pricing isn't working, when in fact, your sales funnel isn't working. So you don't even know if your pricing is working or not. Now, of course, to help your prospective customers move through the stages of the buyer's journey in your sales funnel, you need to show them a non-functional prototype of your product. Curious what a non-functional prototype looks like? Well, here's a non-functional prototype from our favorite entrepreneur, Elon Musk, for his boring company. So boring. Now, you can notice he didn't build anything. Instead, the boring company made a simulation to demonstrate their product concept and the value it would deliver. This video could convey the time savings a commuter would gain by avoiding traffic to get from one location to another. This idea clearly demonstrated the value proposition without the need to actually build the product itself, and generated a considerable amount of demand, which resulted in initial products for the boring company in Las Vegas and Chicago. You too will need to build a non-functional version of your product or service in order for you to validate the price assumption. This will help your customer understand how your product works, as well as how it will solve their problem. Only then will you be ready to expose your customer prospects to a price for them to assess whether the value of your solution is worth the cost. So let's look at the third tool that enables companies to efficiently communicate the price of their product while also conveying its value. Our third tool is the value to price checklist that ensures that your pricing description conveys key elements to enable a customer to make a purchasing decision. Using it, let's look at an example of a tiered product pricing by examining Zapier's pricing page and answer the following questions. Oh, by the way, Zapier, if you're not familiar with it, is a great tool for startups that need to automate repetitive tasks between apps you use, such as MailChimp and Slack, without relying on a developer to do the integration. Okay, back to our checklist. Here's how the checklist runs. Question number 1, can you tell how much you have to pay? Question number 2, can you tell what you're getting in return? Question number 3, can you tell the incremental difference between each pricing tier? And question number 4, can you figure out how to place an order from this page? Okay, let's run through each of these with Zapier's pricing page. First one, so can you tell how much you have to pay? Yes, it looks pretty evident what the pricing levels are for each tier. Next, can you tell what you're getting in return? Yes, the short paragraph under the price on each card summarizes what the customer will get with each price, each price tier. So you can take it as an example, an automated workflow at the $20 level, or the team collaboration comes in at the $250 level. Now, the next question, can you tell the incremental difference between each pricing tier? Once again, yes. The check marks on each card explains the features for each tier. Okay, lastly, can you figure out how to place an order from this page? Once again, yes. Matter of fact, in multiple spots in this case. There's a sign up button at the top right, along with sign up buttons for each price card. See, it's quite easy to use this checklist when evaluating whether your pricing conveys clear value from your customer's perspective. Remember, you want to make it easy for your customers to buy from you and know the value that the purchase of your product or service will provide them. All these insights and tools are designed to avoid the third fatal flaw, when your customers reject your product's price. This fatal flaw is commonly measured in the high cost of customer acquisition relative to the low lifetime value of each customer measured in terms of revenue. Now, after proving the price of your initial product sale, you'll work towards identifying the second, third, and fourth sales, which will increase your incremental profit margin derived after your initial customer conversion. Remember, you're trying to add on and build that relationship with the customer. All right, now that you understand what comprises your price assumption, let's look at how you'll know that you have validation for each startup phase. During the first startup phase, market validation, you will validate your startup's price assumption when you can successfully use your manual sales funnel to convert leads into actual orders with the exchange of money. So for B2C startups, you need to pre-sell a minimum of 5 units. For B2B startups, you need to pre-sell a minimum of 2 to 3 units to know you have the right price for the base product. Also, for a B2B startup, you can help manage the risk for your customer doing business with you during the fourth stage of the buyer's journey by only charging them when you have successfully delivered the final product. So this means that if you need beta testers, you don't charge those customers during your beta test cycle, as you will only bill them for the final release past the beta cycle. Now, one last point to remember. During market validation, you won't try to figure out tiered pricing. You're too early and you really risk creating confusion by prematurely engaging in this. Instead, just go with a simple pricing structure for your product or service that solves a problem for your target segment. Remember, with market validation, you're only trying to be in this for 6 to 12 weeks. Now, you can validate your tiered pricing options during the second startup phase of repeated sales and delivery. So as an example of validating your price assumption during market validation, here we have a founder who's using a paper order to get a pre-sale with the simple order form. So why did this founder use this basic pre-printed order form and fill it out manually with their customer? Well, during market validation, your goal is to get an order and not worry about automating your key business functions. At this early phase, you don't even know if you'll achieve market validation for your startup idea. So why spend the time and money to build out a fully automated system when all you care about is getting a signed order and a check? Now, since I said earlier that you need to have a non-functional prototype of your solution to aid in selling, how much effort should you spend developing that? Well, in much a similar way, you don't want to spend a lot of time and money to produce a prototype when you're still iterating through what comprises your product or service. So in this example, the founder spent less than a few weeks at $150 to get this video produced that describes his startup solution. So let's take a moment to listen in to understand how his solution is being described for prospective customers.
Rapidly deploy branded touchless interactions with flexible workflows, fully integrated with your existing apps, all in the cloud. No costly hardware to purchase, deploy, or maintain. Customers' adoption is a breeze with their own mobile device and one-touch action.
Pretty interesting, right? That video is the third version that this founder had made after spending only $100 in total to get basic production for his first 2 videos as he tested out how prospective customers responded. Once he validated an effective product description, he increased his budget a bit and got all this done using Fiverr resources. During the second startup phase, repeated sales and delivery, you'll convert the manual processes you use during the market validation phase into self-serve processes, meaning that each new buyer will now be able to purchase from you without adding any additional burden to your team. You'll know that you've completed this phase when, number one, your sales funnel is self-serve. Number two, you've achieved your target lead conversion ratio. So what does that mean for a B2C startup? This means that at least 100 customers can successfully purchase from you with no added burden on your team. For a B2B startup, at least 20 customers can purchase from you. By the way, it's been our experience that most B2B products still need a sales team selling during the second startup phase, with the exception being software as a service companies or SaaS solutions. Now this means that most other B2B startups will be ready to convert to a self-serve model during the third startup phase of sustainable growth. The third way you'll know you'll achieve this goal is that you've achieved your target sales conversion timeframes. The timeframe it takes to convert a qualified lead into a paying customer should be lower in this startup phase when compared to the market validation phase. For a B2C startup, the conversion time should be less than 48 hours after acquiring a qualified lead. For a B2B startup, the conversion time will be longer due to the nature of your still forming sales process, but should be within 3 weeks from when your prospective customer became a qualified lead. Okay, and the fourth condition, you have validated the tiered pricing of your product if you're offering different versions of your solution. By the way, if you're selling a tiered product, then these validation metrics apply to each tier for validation purposes, which is why it's often best to add tiered pricing after you've achieved scale with your initial solution, so you can stay focused. Now, here's an example of a startup using Kickstarter to validate pricing for its product. While many founders assume that Kickstarter would be a great platform to prove their idea is market viable, in fact, it is not. Instead, Kickstarter is an excellent platform for acquiring your initial 100 customers or more, which will help you accelerate achieving the repeated sales and delivery phase of your startup. So why is that? To run a successful Kickstarter campaign, you need to validate each of the milestones of your market validation first, which means as a founder, you need to have proven out your lead generation, pricing, and product value using manual processes. Now, notice how Kickstarter's UI makes it easy to implement the buyer's journey using a self-serve model. In other words, when you convert your manual processes into a self-serve model for your customers to easily purchase from you with no additional effort by your staff, Kickstarter's platform has worked out the selling process. Additionally, you're encouraged to test the different pricing tiers as part of your campaign rewards. These are just a few, but of several of the reasons why we believe that Kickstarter is a convenient solution for founders who have validated their ideas market viable and are looking now to automate their sales process during the repeated sales and delivery phase. Okay, I do want you to take note of one mistaken assumption that we found founders often make. Kickstarter will not help you build your marketing channel, nor validate your channel assumption. Too often, successful Kickstarter campaigns fail to continue generating sales after their Kickstarter campaign was funded because the startup failed to build their channel. The founding team would have devoted substantial energy manually attracting campaign conversions to only discover that they hadn't automated their process for sustainable growth. You have to build that channel on your own. Now, on the other hand, here's a Kickstarter campaign that failed to provide substantial pricing value relative to the risk that the backer has. Remember, just because a Kickstarter campaign is funded, there is no guarantee that the product you back will be delivered. In this case, while the reward tier promises a $20 savings over future retail pricing, the backer has to pay $15 in shipping, leaving only $5 in savings remaining, while incurring all of the risk that the product will never be delivered or delivered much later than promised. Personally speaking, while this product absolutely looks fantastic and I'm glad that they're having a successful campaign, it seems just as smart for me to wait till it becomes available for sale to the general public at the end of the year, which means I'll pass back in this campaign because the value isn't worth the risk, which should have been worked out during market validation. Now, speaking of the third startup phase of sustainable growth with our previous Kickstarter example, it's during this phase that your startup will focus on increasing the value being delivered for your product or service while holding the selling price constant. By being able to increase the value being delivered, your startup will be able to stay ahead of the competition as you commercialize innovations that your competitors have to chase to match. Now, in some rare cases, startups can even increase the product price because the value being delivered is so much superior compared to the alternatives. An example of this comes from Tesla. While each model of Tesla's cars are market leaders amongst electric vehicle and hybrid sales, its cars literally deliver more and more value for the driver after they've purchased the car. Tesla is able to do this as it regularly releases new fleet-wide functionality through its free over-the-air software updates. These added capabilities have come in many forms, such as added battery range, new security features, additional in-car gaming and entertainment options, and improved safety. Not only do Tesla owners look forward to new updates, including the occasional Easter egg surprise feature, Tesla's competitors have to play catch-up by being forced to add this over-the-air update functionality into future generations of its vehicles while being unable to retroactively provide this service to its existing cars in the same manner. Those cars are orphaned from that value creation. During our next workshop, we will dive into the product assumption, where we will explore the user's product adoption journey in the order in which successful startups focus on value creation when developing their product or service. Now, before we jump over to Shafiq to answer your questions, if you're looking to change how you grow your startup by building lean and you find these workshops helpful, please subscribe to this YouTube channel and click the notification button, as well as give us a like or drop a positive comment. Also, if you know of other founders or product managers who could benefit from our workshops, please share this video with them so they too can build their startups lean and avoid mistakes that cost time and money. Building Lean is brought to you by the Lean Master Incubator. Unlike other incubators or accelerators that are only interested in getting you ready to pitch to investors, Lean Mastery helps you build key business functions that turn up revenue fast while helping you avoid mistakes that cost time and money. Learn more about how you can become a Lean Mastery Incubator member at leanmastery.co. Also, stick around to the end of Q&A because we have a special offer for those of you guys who are planning on launching Kickstarter campaigns in the fall and spring. Thank you very much for watching, and now over to Shafiq to get us started with answering your burning startup questions.
Hi everyone, Shafiq here. Now that you know why testing your key business assumptions related to pricing is essential, we're going to pivot to answering questions submitted by founders like yourself. But before we do, I want to remind you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, as well as click on the notification bell somewhere here, so you can gain immediate access to our latest episodes. All right, hey Steven, are you ready with your first question?
Yes, hey Shafiq, I got our first question right here. And let's see, our first question comes from a new entrepreneur who has been in several startups, and according to the notes, this person has mostly been a technical lead role up until this point. So let's jump to it. Her question is, do I really have to prove out pricing for my solution? My initial version is pretty similar to an already established product. Can I just plan to charge the same amount as my competitor for now so I can focus on other parts of my startup?
Okay. All right, where to begin? So let's see. Okay, so first off, if your product is just like an already existing product and they're established, by which I assume you mean they have a brand value, and you're just starting out, why would anyone risk buying from an unproven startup like yours when they can already get the same exact product from a trusted and proven established player? So Steven already mentioned the example of Oukitel iPhone clone. They could not even come close to the same price as Apple and get sales. One of the biggest mistakes founders make is that they believe in the fields of dream theory of products. If they build it, then customers would magically show up and be willing to pay whatever price the founder wanted to charge. Well, and Steven, I know you're going to hate this, we're not in Harry Potter land, and magic is not real. And the market physics are alive and still working, which means you have to make a value argument. You will not be considered a viable alternative unless you can make a clear value argument. And I'm sorry, but Me Too products, they just don't, that's not the answer. So yes, you will have to test out the price, and you will likely discover that you cannot get any conversions as long as the price is anywhere close to the established player. So unless you have a way of delivering the solution for a much cheaper price and you figured out how to lower cost, then of course that would be the value prop you're making. You're saying get the same solution for a whole lot less money, right? But so you can't get the same price with a Me Too product. Now on the other hand, maybe what you're really saying is, my product is exactly like the established player, but it does more. It's got better qualities, more durable, or it's a little faster, right? And that's why I can charge more. So there is a differentiator. Or more importantly, you have a sustainable advantage, like you combine a lot of other things that you have to buy with the incumbent, and combine that to finally solve the customer's problem. And in yours, they just have to buy your product. So if all those are true, then yes, you could probably charge the same thing, but you will still have to run the pricing experiment to figure that out. And if you don't run it, then what will happen is that you might be leaving money on the table, or you may be building an inappropriately sized product. So Steven, does that help? Does that you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so first off, Shafiq, if you're going to say magic is not real, I want to point out two things. One, how in the world did that notification bell show up next to you when you asked people to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Magic? And if you're going to talk about magic not existing, at least please let somebody know in advance, because I think it's a little bit scary to talk about.
Steven, I didn't say Santa didn't exist.
Shafiq, is that when you really think about it, I can kind of understand why the founder for this first question would want to work on other parts of our business by taking a shortcut. It seems sensible. However, I think she's probably overestimating the effort involved in proving out her initial product pricing during market validation. This is why thinking about where startup phase you're in is really important, because it's easy to kind of get caught up in the end point and not realizing that actually it's not a lot of effort to prove out initial pricing. Matter of fact, initial pricing will be determined fairly quickly when she runs her sales conversion experiments. And for that matter, one of the benefits of running those sales conversion experiments would be that she's confident that her sales funnel is working before she attempts to automate her customer acquisition process. So you really can't skip that part of it. Okay, we got our next question here, Shafiq. Hey, this one comes from someone who's attended our meetups, which is really very cool. Of course, I'm going to say this on behalf of Shafiq. We miss seeing all y'all in person, and we hope that we can all be together again soon, and we hope y'all are all well through all this challenging time. Okay, so this founder's question is, thanks for putting these workshops online. I have attended many of your in-person workshops and love the tools you guys share. I've been wondering for a while now, when it comes to validating the sales funnel, what's the hardest conversion stage to validate?
Oh, that's a really good question. It's almost like a discovery question. So in our experience, so going back to the workshop, Steven, I think you covered, if I recall correctly, you covered the buyer's journey. And so in our experience, founders for some reason have a real hard time discussing alternative ways of solving the problem. So in your sales funnel, you have to take the buyer through all the alternatives and help them understand why your solution is way better than all other existing solutions or all other existing alternatives. And most founders love their solution so much, they forget to do the hard part of quantifying the difference between their solution and existing alternatives. So just claiming I'm way better than alternatives is not the way to do it. But saying something concrete like, hey, we're 50% faster, or we save you 3 hours over these 3 other ways of doing it, right? Those are the kinds of differences, different ways of pointing that out. So that seems to be, for whatever reason, a really hard time. And of course, I want to remind everyone that you only get 10 seconds or less to take your buyer through that and reject those alternatives. Otherwise, if you don't, leaves the buyer to put the brakes on the sales cycle and go do their own research, which of course means that they will likely be subject to an argument about one of the alternatives, in this case, your competitor. And they'll take them through the buyer's journey because they'll know how to do this stuff. And they'll explain why they're better. And if they did a good job, they'll probably get the sale, right? And then they get to thank you for driving the business to them. So you only get one shot. And if you lose a customer, they go away, the chances that you recover from that are really low, unless the competition is just incompetent, which in today's hypermarket, we know they're not. So that's why you have to take your customer through all the alternatives and make sure what you're telling them is accurate, self-evident truth, and you can't hand wave your way through it. You have to explain to them why you're better, which of course sometimes founders have a hard time doing because they haven't created a better solution than existing alternatives. So they assume that if they don't bring it up, the customer will simply not know. But customers always figure it out. You can't count on your customer being ignorant or fooling them. That's not a strategy, not in the lean methodology. So moving on to the second area. The second area is the funnel. In the funnel management is the managing the risk of the buyer. So most founders, especially in the early stages, have a really hard time providing guarantees. And obviously that assumes that one of the easiest way of managing risk is to be able to provide a guarantee on your product, to stand behind what you're selling them, right? You're going to return their money if it doesn't work out. They get stuck wondering how, so the reason founders have a hard time providing guarantees, they get stuck wondering how they can afford to return the customer's money in the early days. You should never spend your customer's money or count on it, especially in the market validation or in the repeated sales and delivery phase. Remember, you're trying to get those 100 customers to really help you rapidly improve your product so they start to love it, right? And when you got 100 customers who are extremely satisfied and they've adopted the product and they're using it, then you don't have to worry about returning their money. They love it, they're not going to want their money back. It's only when they're not satisfied do you have to be concerned. So until you've managed to get at least 100 customers extremely happy, you don't want to go ahead and spend that money, right? And the reason is because it just takes way too much energy to worry about handling pissed off customers and figuring out whose fault it is. You're much better off moving on, returning the money and moving on and learning what went wrong with your product from that failure. Spending energy trying to keep the money will only keep you from spending the same energy on improving your product so that specific failure does not occur in the future. Steven, would you like adding to that one?
Those are some real pearls you're laying down there. So, frankly, I just want to echo what you said about managing your customer's risk. For that matter, I couldn't say it any better. So, I just want founders to really think about the value of trust and reputation when starting out. That goodwill has a lot of future importance to your growth. So, you need to be sure to treat your initial customers really well and recognize that customer disappointment that may come from those early adopters experiencing the initial version of your product, that's going to go away as you learn how to deliver a better and better solution. All right, last question here, Shafiq. This comes from a non-technical founder who's trying to get their initial version of their website built. And her question is, I'm just getting started with market validation and I created my first landing page. It looks horrible. And Shafiq, horrible is in bold font and all caps. So this founder is not happy with where she's at. So she also writes, I heard from friends that there are a lot of good resources on Fiverr to get my landing page built. Do you guys have any advice on the best way to find the right Fiverr resource to fix my landing page?
Okay, so that's one of those pretty questions. So how do I make my product look nice? So Steven, like I think we have a saying, right? Can you put up that slide that shows the order in which you should think about refining your solution? Okay, great. All right, so as you can see, the first you should be focused on making it work, then make it easy, then make it fast, and then finally make it pretty. So to answer the question, since our founder here is in market validation phase, their only concern is how to make it work. So when they say the word horrible, I'm going to assume what they mean is that they're really saying it does not work. In other words, when somebody lands there, they're just confused, right? They can't tell what to do. So in which case, they're not able to convey the problem, the solution, and the value prop clearly enough that they need a Fiverr resource to help them convey that so they can get the buyer, they can take the buyer through the buyer's journey. Now, about using Fiverr resources, Fiverr makes it really easy to preview the work of their providers. My advice is that be very clear in what you want. Remember, don't expect the designer to write the landing page copy. That's your job. And if you want help writing copy, then treat that as a separate Fiverr project. Once you like the landing page copy and it's clearly taking the buyer through the buyer's journey, then you may be ready to have the designer organize and present that in a coherent manner on your landing page. Also, it'll help if you can find a designer who's built landing pages for similar products as yours. So like if you're trying to sell software, find somebody who's built software landing pages for software. If you got a consumer packaged good one, then make sure you find somebody who's done consumer packaged goods. And then we also recommend using certain types of, so when you hire the Fire resources, make sure you're using some off-the-shelf landing page tools like Squarespace, Wix, or GoDaddy, because then it's easy for you to be able to run your experiments fast. You can get the Fire resources to work directly in those sites and create the landing page. You can check it out, then you can make it turn live. And more importantly, when you have to make a change, you don't have to go keep going back to the Fire resource. You can quickly make changes and try A/B versions yourself. So my view would be, in summary, basically make sure you're splitting the Fiverr job in the appropriate way. You're not getting a designer to do copy, and you're not getting a copy editor to do design work. Split it up as two separate Fiverr jobs, and then make sure you're using off-the-shelf tools to create your landing pages, and are not trying to do something where you're hand coding all that stuff so you can't make changes real easy, unless you're well versed in that stuff, and then it might be okay. But even then, you're not going to get what Squarespace, Wix, or GoDaddy website does, which is it's mobile friendly, it can handle all different formats, and automatically handles all that back-end wiring stuff, and you don't have to screw around with that. So I would continue using those even if you're well versed. Steven, you want to add anything to that one?
That's great, Shafiq. I think that covers everything that the founder should be looking at, especially those the different tools. But definitely, what I really appreciate is you broke down the fact that the person really has two different roles that they're looking for at Fiverr: the person who could help put the website together, as well as the copy editor. Okay, we have this week we have another surprise. By the way, thanks to all of those of you who took us up on last week's offer. We really appreciate it. This week, we are announcing a special cohort for our Lean Mastery Incubator. If you have ever tried to run a Kickstarter campaign and failed, or had a successful campaign but failed to continue selling your product post Kickstarter campaign, or are thinking about running a brand new Kickstarter campaign, especially this coming fall or even next spring, you're going to want to apply to the Lean Mastery Incubator by August 15th so you can join our Kickstarter cohort. Spots are limited, and we will be using our rolling admissions process, which means that the quicker you apply, the better chance you'll have to gain one of these coveted incubator spots. The Kickstarter cohort will start on September 1st, 2020. To learn more about the Lean Mastery Incubator Kickstarter cohort and apply, visit leanmastery.co. Don't miss out, y'all. This is a really fantastic opportunity to work directly with Shafiq and I as you get ready for your Kickstarter campaigns. So get your applications in today. Thank you all for watching, and we look forward to helping you be successful in pursuing your startup dreams by building lean.
Bye, everyone.